Why take FPL advice from one expert when you can take advice from 100 of them? Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan, and I can't lie guys, I've been very excited to make this video because we will be seeing how the top managers of FPL will be dealing with the Gameweek 29 blank, and believe me, there are a record-breaking amount of transfers today. So first of all, a massive shout out to all of the experts who helped us out by volunteering their data this week. All 100 of them. Obviously, it's taken a little while to put all the data, input all of the data in this week because there simply has been so many transfers being made ahead of Game Week 29. So looking forward to sharing it with you guys. And yeah, thank you for the data. Let's get going. So I wasn't lying when I said this is a record-breaking week because never in the history of the 100 Experts series, and we've been making these videos for I think over 3 years now. This is crazy. We have never seen so many of our experts making so many transfers. As you can see, guys, 13% of the experts this week are making just one transfer. 31% are making two transfers, but an incredible 46% are making 3 or more transfers in Game Week 29. And this includes 12 people who are making 4 transfers and a further 3 who are making 5 transfers this week. Never been seen before. I guess that's what happens when you can roll so many transfers as you can this year. So hopefully, guys, you have been able to roll a few transfers going into this new game week. And if not, maybe you can consider taking a hit or two because believe me, you would not be alone among the experts when taking a hit because, yeah, a lot of transfers, a lot of hits being thrown around this week. But this is where things get a little bit more interesting because we see 3% of our experts actually using a wild card this week. So this is a very, very low number here. So this is certainly not the template standard strategy. However, some people may have found themselves in a situation where certain players are not available that they thought they would be. All kinds of planning. Maybe you brought in Cunha and maybe you brought in other players who are injured or suspended recently, and unfortunately that's kind of forced a situation where a wild card might be necessary, particularly if you need to make a lot of transfers but don't have the free transfers to really deal with it. It could be that a wild card is needed, but very, very few of our experts are doing that. But what I found super fascinating is that only 4% of experts will be free hitting, and I think in the overall FPL player base we will see a huge amount of free hits, far more than 4%. I think a lot of the general player base will find themselves backed into a corner this week and forced to play a free hit. And our experts seem to actually, you know, there's even some using a wild card rather than free hitting to try and escape this situation in Game Week 29 and trying to maintain that free hit for later on in the season because we still see 95%, I believe, still have their free hit even after Game Week 29 for the doubles and blanks in the future, which we think are going to be even bigger than Game Week 29. So not that many people on a free hit. I think if I was on a free hit right now, that would maybe worry me just a little bit, but that is not to say a free hit is a bad idea. 4% is still some experts. So some experts still using a free hit this week. And of course, we've got 3% making no transfers whatsoever, which is stupidly low, but it's not nothing. So maybe some of our experts genuinely are already well set up for Game Week 29, which is quite crazy indeed. But with so many transfers being made, we have got some excellent trends. We've got certain players that have huge amounts of interest among experts this week, and I can't wait to share that with you guys. But before we do that, as always, we're going to have a look at the global top picks and see what the overall player base is doing in terms of those transfers. And it seems like Manchester United tax is back. 250,000 transfers in for Bruno Fernandes. And I can't say I totally blame people for bringing this guy in a good form right now. Plays Leicester up next. And in fairness, there is a strong trend towards experts bringing in Fernandes as well. The other players on this list that our experts are very interested in, as well as Bruno, are Wood, Gibbs-White, Haaland, and Gavardio. However, the order is completely different in terms of who are the most popular players for experts. We see a very different list of priority players for this game week, which is, again, super interesting. There's also a little bit of interest in Cliver, who is super high owned among experts anyway, but yet more of our experts are looking to bring him in this week. Some interest in Kirkes as well, the Bournemouth defender. However, not really too much movement on the likes of Ola Aina. And we do see that for transfers in this week, all three of the other, all three of the kind of other four defenders for Forest who play every week are more popular transfers in than Aina this week. So Aina, yes, he's the most popular Forest defender to bring in the overall player base, but he's actually the least popular Nottingham Forest defender to bring in if you are an expert, which is super interesting, and maybe we can find some small edges there. Of course, there's two players in here with a negative trend. We actually see experts selling Joao Pedro, and Wissa as well is being sold by two of our experts and bought in by one. So negative trends on Joao Pedro and Wissa, despite their popularity in the overall player base. But what we want to see, we've kind of looked at these kind of players, which of these players are maybe traps. Who do our experts prefer to this list of players? Who is the real priority player to bring in? And that's what we need to get to very soon. But first of all, we need to figure out who we're going to be transferring out. And the answer to that question seems to be Trent Alexander-Arnold. He is the most sold player among experts for Game Week 29. 47 transfers out. He was around 84% ownership last week among these top managers. So over half will be removing Trent, and I think that could even increase, as we have seen that Trent is at least out and unavailable for the League Cup final, and it is suspected that he could be out for a little bit longer as well. The latest quote is that Liverpool hope that Trent can be back before the end of the season, which doesn't sound too positive to me. So Trent, lots of transfers out for him. Cole Palmer is in second here. Almost half of Cole Palmer owners will be removing him. He was at 100% ownership in Game Week 28, and that is going to be slashed in half ahead of Game Week 29. So huge amount of transfers out for him, despite the fact that he actually does have a fixture and is available to play in Game Week 29. In fact, he is the only player on this list available to play in Game Week 29, and yet he is almost in that number one spot for most transferred player out. It's a difficult game against Arsenal away from home. Cole Palmer been in some poor form, and because of his high price tag, selling him really can free up some money to make some big moves, which we will be sharing with you alongside the captain data as well, which is super interesting. Maybe some people selling Palmer to try and buy a new captain for the game week, but no spoilers just yet. Cunha is suspended, of course, so the majority of his owners will be removing him ahead of Game Week 29. 33 owners last week, 24 of them will be removing him. Alexander Isak is a little more interesting. He was owned by 86% of experts last game week, but he has got 22 transfers out this week. So the majority of our experts will be choosing to keep Isak, leave him on the bench for Game Week 29. But there still is a significant amount of managers who are choosing to sacrifice Isak in order to make other moves in their FPL team. Morgan Rogers sees a dip in his ownership as well. Around a third of experts who own Rogers will be selling him this week. Gakpo will be owned by pretty much no one. Hall is going to be owned by very few experts as well. These players will be left on the bench for anyone who does keep them. And Mo Salah, I know a lot of people will be thinking about freeing up some cash by selling Mo Salah, but actually only 8 of our experts will be selling him this week. 100% owned him last week. So it's actually a very small percentage of Salah owners will actually be selling him this week. So maybe that is an indication that Salah is one of those players we'd like to keep on our bench, maintain the team value that we have invested in Salah, and have him ready to go for Game Week 30 as well. If you are not planning on wildcarding in Game Week 30, then Salah is going to be a very useful player to have in that Everton fixture in Game Week 30. A decent amount of transfers as well for Watkins and Mateta. Their ownerships will be slashed roughly in half as well. So lots of players being transferred out. There are a whole bunch of other players being transferred out as well, but it seems to be all revolving around those players who cannot play this game week, with the exception of Cole Palmer. So if you have players who cannot play in Game Week 29, and if you have Cole Palmer, these are all players that our experts seem to be selling, transferring out this week. But the big question is, they are selling so many players and a lot of expensive players here. What are the big moves that they are making this week? And I'm sure you guys can make a little guess. But before you guess, guys, make sure you do drop a like on the video. Like I said, it's taken a little while longer to put this video together because there was so much data, transfer data to input this week. But hopefully we've got a really useful video as a result. And of course, do subscribe if you want to follow along with the expert trends and the expert squad every single game week. Let's keep it moving by having a look at the transfers in. So there is one man on the lips of so many top FPL managers this week, and his name is Erling Haaland. And it arguably feels like a bit of a throwback to earlier on in the season, maybe the last couple of seasons of FPL as well, where it seemed like everyone had Erling Haaland in their team. But actually, until this week, he was owned by just 2% of our experts, which is super, super low. This week, a very different story. Brighton at home, followed by that Leicester fixture in Game Week 30, creates a very nice pair of fixtures for Haaland before that wild card that so many experts are planning in Game Week 31. So Haaland, as a result, 56 transfers in for him. He is the flavour of the week, and you are probably going to have to sell a few of those expensive assets in order to do so. And I'm going to go through the best way to free up money in order to get Haaland according to what our experts are doing this week. In second place here, we see Gvardiol. Again, another player who has been lost to time a little bit in FPL. A very interesting player previously, but in recent months, really no interest there whatsoever. But Man City improving defensively, a decent pair of fixtures for the likes of the Man City boys, and Gvardiol obviously does have that history of getting attacking returns as well. As a result, 25 new owners of Gvardiol will appear in Game Week 29, which is an increase of just the 2% owned that he was in Game Week 28, super low. Bruno Fernandes, another player, super low owned last game week, but 21 new transfers in for him makes him the most popular midfielder to buy this game week, and he's super popular in the overall player base as well. So, yeah, Haaland and Gvardiol may be preferred by experts, but Bruno is still in the top 3 here. 21 new transfers in for him. Langa, again, another player, nobody had him last week, but, well, 1% did, but very few. This week, new story, different story. Elanga, decent data, very cheap at 5.3 million, and has that nice fixture against Ipswich, followed by Manchester United in Game Week 30. So a nice pair of fixtures for the nice and cheap Nottingham Forest options that we do have at our disposal. Chris Wood, already pretty popular player, already a template player within the experts ranks, but his ownership will continue to increase ahead of Game Week 29. Ait Nouri is a nice cheaper defender that you could go for, 10 new owners for him. Gibbs White is also here as a potential option for those of you looking for a new Forest midfielder. Maybe if you have a little bit more money to spend, you can go for Gibbs White at 6.5. And we've got a couple of Bournemouth plays in here as well. Cliver, who was already super popular. Kirkes was already reasonably popular, but their ownership continues to grow. And the most popular Nottingham Forest defender to buy this week is actually Milenkovic, followed by Nico Williams, who I believe is at maybe 6 or 7 transfers in among the expert data. We actually have so many transfers in this week, so many different players. So I probably will publish the full list of players being transferred in by experts this week. I'll post that over on my Twitter account if you guys want to follow me over there, and we'll post the full list because there's a huge amount of other players who are kind of being transferred in by 5, 6, 7 managers who I think are really interesting as well. So this is the list of most popular players, but this list is by no means exhaustive. I don't know. I know the word I'm thinking of. I can't remember how to say it. But you guys get the point. This is a list of the most popular players, but there are so many more as well. So really, really interesting stuff here. Haaland is the most popular guy, but how are you going to bring him in? We will tell you in just one moment. Because first of all, we do need to look at the template, and even though Game Week 28 seemed like a little bit of a tough week, in general, our experts did get green arrows, and the average rank for our experts is now up to 156k, which is really, really nice, with still plenty of game weeks to go. And certainly, what we see every season is that the time of year where our experts really, really boost those ranks is when chip season comes into play. When the chips are being played, when chip strategy is super important, we are going to see this rank go up and up and up. But to see it already increasing pretty much every single week is a positive sign indeed. The average score among experts for Game Week 28 was 57.7 points. So let me know in the comments whether you beat the average expert score or if you fell a little bit behind there. And also, are you keeping up with the experts with their average rank of 156k? Of course, we do have 39% of our experts in the top 100k now and up to 12% in the top 10k. So hopefully these numbers can continue to improve, continue to increase, and we'll see how our experts finish on average by the end of the season. But as for this template, guys, there has been a huge shake up to an extent where the template is pretty much shattered at this point, and Game Week 29 is going to give a huge opportunity to go different. There could be a lot of swings depending on which players you pick this week, which is an exciting opportunity indeed, because we see so many players dropping in ownership, but not really too many players really standing out to replace them in the template. So we still see Fabianski and Pickford as goalkeepers. There's been no change to the 5 most popular defenders among experts ahead of Game Week 29, though of course Alexander-Arnold has had his ownership slashed. The replacements are so split between Gvardiol, Aït-Nouri and all of those Forest defenders that there's no real one standout player to replace Trent in the general template. But that's just kind of how these I've worked this out, because we're just going by the percentage owned of the most popular players and ordering them by that. So really, the template is kind of maybe the first 4 defenders on here, and in addition to that, one of Gvardiol or a Forest defender, I guess. Maybe Aït-Nouri there as well. In the terms of the midfield, again, no change whatsoever. We even see Dango maintaining his place in the template, despite the fact he is a super rotation risk. But there is one change and one new player who has solidified themselves in the template this week, and that is Erling Haaland. He's up to 58% ownership by experts. So over half experts will own Erling Haaland. But I think if you're not going for Haaland this week, this maybe can give you some confidence that maybe you don't absolutely need him, because it is going to take a couple of transfers to make that happen, which we are going to explain next. So let's look at some combo transfers here, guys, and we're going to have a look at some various ways we can try and get Haaland into our team by using multiple transfers. And one way of doing it, there's 2 kind of ways of doing it with 2 transfers, but it is going to require a little bit of money in your bank. So if you have got 2-3 million in your bank, I know I have, but a few of you guys may also have a bit of money in your bank, particularly if you recently used your assistant manager and have been rolling transfers. It may be possible to simply downgrade a player like Palmer down to a Langer, and that may allow you to upgrade a Cunha, or maybe even an Isak or a Gakpo or a Watkins up to Haaland, and you can do it simply in 2 transfers, which would be really, really nice to do. Of course, if you wanted to downgrade Alexander-Arnold, it is a little bit more difficult. So Alexander-Arnold down to a cheap defender, it could be Aït-Nouri, it could be like an Agabadu or a Forest defender as well. Maybe that frees up enough money to upgrade Isak to Haaland, but it might also take a 3rd transfer to free up that extra little bit of budget you need to make these kind of moves. Of course, if you don't want to go for Haaland, but you have your eyes set on Bruno Fernandes, Palmer to Bruno is a very nice idea as well. And that allows you to upgrade those cheap midfielders who you maybe don't want this week. Rodgers, maybe you've got a Dango, I don't know what other players you want. Maybe still got an Ahmad in your squad. You can use that to switch Rodgers up to a Gibbs White, or someone like that could work pretty well as well. But I want to go on to some Wombo combo transfers. Yes, never done this before, but it's never been required to make a section of the video on triple transfers in the history of this series. But it's a new week, it's a new season, and I'm so here for it. So here we go, Wombo combo transfers. If you want to get in Haaland and you need to make a triple transfer in order to do so, taking Palmer down to a Langer and then Alexander-Arnold down to maybe a Gvardiol, or maybe you could go even cheaper than Gvardiol, Aït-Nouri, Milenkovic, something like that. All of these are popular kind of downgrades for Trent. That will allow you to upgrade a Cunha or a Gakpo or a Mateta or a Watkins up to Haaland. Now, ideally, if you're making a triple transfer, you maybe would keep the likes of Salah and Isak, and I think that's a big part of why these triple transfers are so popular, because it allows you to keep those big hitting players ready for game week 30 and onwards, and allows you to hold your team value of those players indeed as well. So that's going to be a really nice way to make a triple transfer. This particular trio combo is super popular indeed. We see some people going for Gibbs-White or Hudson-Odoi or Kluivert instead of a Langer, but the theory remains the same. You downgrade Palmer to a cheaper midfielder, you downgrade Trent to a cheaper defender, and that's going to allow you to upgrade whatever forward you have right now who you don't really want in your team all the way up to Haaland. That is a really nice combo. And the other option here is if you kind of maybe take Palmer down to a Bruno, if you want to do that, but you also need to free up some more money. So Palmer down to Bruno, that frees up a couple of million. You need to find some more money. Okay, maybe we can take Trent down to a really, really cheap defender. Maybe Aït-Nouri, even he is too expensive for this kind of method. But that would allow you to upgrade Isak to a Haaland. So that way you can get Bruno in your team and Haaland in your team. So you're hitting two of the most popular attacking players really ahead of Gameweek 29. So those are really nice ideas for combo transfers, but we need to have a look at captaincy as well, because it's a super interesting week for captaincy. Some of you guys are going to have Haaland, some of you guys are going to be looking for other options. Let's see what the experts are doing. Well, it seems primarily a four-way split on captaincy this week, with Beto and Mbermo each being captained by just one of our experts each. Not really enough to call it a trend, and there's certainly some other options here. So first of all, Erling Haaland, we're going to see him captained by around 58% of our experts. And by the way, guys, I know that seems a little bit higher than what we were expecting Haaland's ownership to be at around 58%. That's not to say everyone who owns Haaland will be captaining him, but we also got the likes of free hitters and wildcarders, and we don't track free hitters and wildcarders when we're looking at the template team. So it's not like every Haaland owner is captaining him. Some will still be going to the likes of Wood or Bruno, but in general, if you have Haaland, you're probably going to look to captain him. That seems to be the majority trend among our experts. Outside of that, Chris Wood is a really good contender here as well. Away against Ipswich, if you don't have Haaland, then Wood against Ipswich could be really nice as well. Obviously, that is the better fixture, but probably Haaland a little more trustworthy generally than Chris Wood. So do you want to back the big name player, or do you want to back the fixture? Both players, of course, have been phenomenal this season generally. I know Haaland has his critics, but really he has been back in form recently. Bruno Fernandes, also 10% captaincy for him. Opting for a midfielder here could be a little bit of an interesting idea. And actually, Bruno is going to be a bit of a differential. Not too many of our experts and the general FPL player base will even be able to get to a Bruno. So by captaining him as well, you can double your risk, but also double your reward. Leicester's a really nice fixture, and Bruno's been in good form. Kluivert also sees 8 captains here as well, and I found this interesting. I thought Haaland, Wood, and Bruno would be the main 3 captains this week, and yes, they are, but Kluivert's not too far behind Bruno this week at home against Brentford, so definitely one to consider. So overall, in terms of captaincy for Game Week 29, if you have Haaland, most experts would tell you need to captain Haaland, but if you don't, Wood is a player a lot of our experts are more than happy to captain this week. And if you're looking for a different captain this week, you want to try something different, you want to play a riskier game, then Bruno and Kluivert are the 2 names that stand out the most. So guys, that is everything we have for you today. If you have any other questions around the experts data, or just want to ask an FPL question in general, make sure you do leave it down in the comments. Don't forget to let me know what you scored in Game Week 28. Did you beat the experts or not? And if you are beating the expert average rank, maybe you guys are going to be competing with the experts this season season, which is very impressive. Hopefully these videos have helped you do that this season. But guys, check out another video if you'd like to. Buy, sell, keep, avoid was up yesterday, but I'll be back tomorrow with my own transfers, and I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.